talk a little bit about wrestling. This is the wrestling edition of the podcast, and so we're just gonna talk some wrestling and have a good time. And there's a
Heck yeah.
lot to cover, man. I just read some news as we were coming on that Edge is coming back at Crown Jewel. So that is
Wait, he is? That's
that
breaking news.
that's breaking news right here live. So
Oh my gosh.
that's apparently that's what I read. I don't know how true it is, but that's what I just read. So that's
Well, what pay per view was it where he just did a little mini spot? I don't know if you remember that. It was like a month or two ago where he did just a little tiny spear on, I think it was Elias.
yeah.
Um,
Oh
and everyone
man.
was like, yeah, I don't remember what it was, but everyone was like, man, you can't. Can he take bumps? He's not supposed to take bumps. And I remember thinking to myself, like, something's got to be going on because if he's willing to take a bump like that, that something improved. Something improved.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's been rumors flying that he was in Pittsburgh getting checked out by the medical doctors and all that. And now I just read that he's coming back at Crown Jewel to replace Seth Rollins in the.
Of course he is.
Yeah, so a little bit of a spoiler, but oh well, that's breaking news, and
It is.
people will enjoy that. So
Yeah, heck yeah. Wow, that's well that'll give me something else to talk about on my next episode too. So there
excellent.
we go.
Yeah, you can. Speaking of your next episode, you might as well plug your podcast now, while we're still early on into the podcast here, and you know,
Thanks, man. Yeah, I just appreciate the partnership. We've had a good working relationship with you for the last couple weeks, so that's always very much appreciated. But
yep.
myself and my buddy Corey, we host a little wrestling podcast called Cheap Pops Wrestling Podcast. You can find us on YouTube. That's where we host it each week. We're also on Instagram and Twitter at Cheap Pops WP. And so we also have a Facebook page as of just a few weeks ago as well. If you search Cheap Pops Wrestling Podcast, so we try to come up with as many kind of fresh segments as possible. Try to kind of put our own spin on different things in the wrestling world. We're pretty active on social media as well. So like when I was at NXT Seattle just a couple days ago, I was posting pretty much after every match.
Yep.
Kind of giving my thoughts really quick on that. So a lot of presence on social media, especially during like Raw, SmackDown, AEW Dynamite, which I know we're going to talk about at length today, NXT, all those, and then especially pay-per-view. So it's a really fun podcast. We enjoy doing it. We've loved partnering with you for the last couple of weeks. So it's been a good little mix.
Yes, and as an active listener, I can assure all the people listening that it is high quality content there, and they should definitely check it out if they're a wrestling fan. That is for sure.
Thanks,
So,
man.
yeah, no problem. I listen to it every week. I'm a little bit behind. I haven't listened to your last one, but I try and listen to it when it comes out. As soon as it comes out, I try and give it a listen. And you guys have some interesting views that I enjoy. So,
I appreciate that. We've been longtime fans. Our dads both, were fans as they were kids and stuff. So it's kind of like in our, I don't want to say in our blood because that sounds so wrestling cliche, but it's kind of something we've loved for a long time, and it's something we definitely enjoy talking about. We have stories for days, random facts for days. We're a very eclectic mix, just the two of us being able to kind of put out our views and our own spin on things. So it's a lot of fun to do.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, we can dive right into your adventures. I mean, that's what this podcast is all about. So we can
Yeah.
just dive right into them. You've had a busy, like we said, you've had a busy couple days here, a couple weeks even, and
Yeah.
met some wrestlers in Vegas, and even beyond that at the NXT. So let's talk a little bit about that. What was the first encounter there in Vegas, and how did that come about?
So the first encounter in Vegas was totally and 100% kudos to my wife. I told the story in our last edition too, and it's a really fun story how it happened because her and I were in Las Vegas the same weekend as SmackDown as they were doing the WWE draft, and I joked I wanted so badly to go to the event, but my wife wasn't really for it. again, we're there on a little kind of adult getaway, not trying to like make her go to something she doesn't want to go to.
Yep.
And so I just kind of jokingly told her, I said, hey, if I notice that any of the wrestlers are like out on the town, like, can we kind of maybe go like see if we can kind of bump into them or whatever? And she's like, yeah, I don't care. Like, if you see they're at a bar, or you see they're at a certain casino, like, we'll go wander through and see if we can find them. And I was like, awesome. And so nobody was really posting that night. Like, I was kind of looking for some different accounts. Braun Strowman threw out a post that he was at some club, but I'm a middle-aged man. I'm not looking to go walk into a club and start trying to hunt down a wrestler. And so we had like tried the Planet Hollywood. That was kind of a no-go. I thought about trying like the Bellagio. That didn't work out. And so my wife is like, let's just go down to the MGM Grand. She's like, that's near the T-Mobile Arena. She goes, I bet there's going to be somebody there. And I'm like, I don't know. They might want to stay at a better hotel. Like, I'm not saying the MGM Grand's bad, but it's just when you think of Vegas, you think of these wrestlers. I'm like, the Bellagio, that's got to be someplace they want to go,
Yeah.
But I was like, whatever, we'll go down to the MGM Grand. We'll give it a try. So we walk all the way down there, which I don't know if you've ever been to Vegas, but the Strip is a walk. I mean, it's long, and it's a lot farther, than people think. And so we hoofed it down there, and we're walking through the casino, and we start to get towards the end of the casino, which then heads out into the lobby and like the valet, Uber, Lyft area and all that. And I see a man and a woman in matching purple Adidas jumpsuits, like head to toe matching, like his and hers, like straight up 1,000% matching purple jumpsuits. And it's Montez Ford of the Street Profits and Bianca Belair from NXT. And I just kind of see him, and I stop, and I just literally, like, I don't yell it, but I say it loud enough so they can hear. I just stop and I go, Montez Ford and Bianca Belair. And they just both kind of like turn and look at me, and I kind of like throw my hands up and I go, hey, I'm not looking to bother you guys. Like, I just have to say I'm big fans of both of you guys. Really love what you guys do. Please, like, keep up the good work. All success to you. Like, kudos to you. Just wanted to let you know. And Montez Ford, God bless him, like, literally turns and looks at me, and he's like, man, God bless you. Thank you so much for the support. Comes and gives me a hug, like a bro hug, like the handshake with the clench and the back pat and all that. Bianca introduces herself to my wife first, so she walks up to my wife. She's like, hi, I'm Bianca. What's your name? And all this. And they're like, hey, thank you so much for the support. It really means a lot to us. And I was like, hey, like my friend and I have a podcast. We talk about you all the time. Like, seriously, we love what you guys do. Love what you stand for. Like, keep pushing, keep going. Like, all the success in the world to you. And they're like, oh man, thank you so much. It means so much to us. Like, appreciate it. And they just kind of happily go walk off. And stupidly, I didn't ask for a picture. I didn't have anything on me to like get autographed, so I didn't. I kind of struck out that way. But just to kind of randomly see them walking through a hotel casino was kind of that one in a million opportunity, and it was just cool to interact with them for a few minutes in a personal way.
Yep. I mean, sometimes it's not all about the picture or the autograph. At least you have that awesome story to tell, and you kind of leveled with them as a person instead of, oh, you're famous, let me grab an autograph or whatever, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Right.
so that's, that's better sometimes, and that's
Yeah.
good stuff. So.
Yeah, and I think, too, I think one thing, and again, going back to kind of the autograph side of things, since, this is, your podcast is a beautiful podcast for autographs and talking strategy and talking that stuff. But
yeah, absolutely.
One thing I always try to remind myself, especially if I run into somebody in public, because I've had that opportunity a few times, is at that point, like, they're just trying to get on with their day, like whether it's they're going to dinner, going to a meeting, walking down the street. I don't want to draw a lot of attention to them, like,
yep.
I try to respect that boundary of reminding myself, like, yes, even though they're celebrities and we're fans, like, they're still just like people. And that was one thing, because even my wife afterwards was like, well, how come you didn't ask for a picture? And I was like, I didn't honestly want to draw attention to them. Like, not everyone's a wrestling fan, so I would venture to guess, like, at least half the people in that casino had no idea who they were, and I'm sure they preferred that. And so, who would I be to all of a sudden start snapping a picture? Because it's going to happen. Everyone's going to see me taking a picture with them, and then all of a sudden be like, oh, that's someone famous, and then start asking them for pictures. So, like you said, like, sometimes it's just about the memory, because I didn't want to, like, inconvenience their night by all of a sudden kind of stopping their daily traffic because I want to be selfish and take a picture or try to nab an autograph in that moment, you know?
Yep, and that's a good rule to go by there. Sometimes it's just, you gotta think of the situation. Like if you would have seen him on the street and there's no one around or whatever, that's one thing. But you're in a
Sure.
crowded casino, man. So it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
so. But that's cool. I mean, that's awesome. That's
Yeah, yeah, it was a fun moment. We missed out. Alexa Bliss was hopping around Vegas the next day, and we kind of went in and out of places she had either been to just a little bit ago or like went to later. So that was kind of a bummer that I missed out on her because I'm a big fan of her. But it was just a really cool experience, to have that kind of personal conversation with him and everything, and kind of set the tone for the rest of the week. Because it was like I had that story, and then obviously Friday, big success at NXT Seattle. So it was like a cool little start to have that in Vegas, and then kind of have that bleed into this week, and have NXT Seattle be a mega success, not only for like autographs but just for meeting people too.
absolutely. Well, you segued right into it, man. Let's talk about that NXT event because it was crazy. I
Yeah,
saw the stuff on Facebook and wow, did you ever
yeah,
clean
yeah.
up on that one?
Yeah, I remember shooting you a few extra pictures, ahead of time because I was just like, I had to show somebody, somebody that I knew would appreciate it.
Yep.
So I took my son to the event. My son's 7. He's never been to a live WWE show or anything. He's asked to go with me several times, but I've always been a little leery of it. But being kind of just like an NXT live event, I was like, this would be kind of the prime opportunity to just start him off.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it was at a little theater, local theater here in Seattle. I mean, I would say small. It wasn't a small theater, but just it wasn't like in an arena. It was just literally like the ring was on the stage, and then we were all sitting. Like it was like watching like a concert, which was a unique perspective.
Yeah.
There was like 2 little rows of ringside seats around each side of it. But other than that, it was just, everyone was looking straight onto the ring, which was interesting perspective.
Hmm.
Um, and so I'm doing my thing during the show. I'm on our Cheap Pops WP Twitter handle, like tweeting about every match and posting some stuff on our Instagram page, different pictures. And there's a
Yep.
few cool surprises, like the Street Profits were doing their farewell tour to NXT, so they were in a 6-man tag match with against the Undisputed Era's Roderick Strong, Bobby Fish, and Kyle O'Reilly, and Finn Balor was their tag team partner. So that was a big surprise. And this kind of gets into what I was able to experience afterwards.
Yep.
My son is a huge Finn Balor fan, absolutely massive Finn Balor fan. Has his like demon mask, will
Yep.
pretend to do his entrance and stuff. He has an NXT championship belt, so he'll like crawl around the house like he's the demon and like throw his belt around and stuff. Like it's really funny. And
Nice.
so he sees him and his jaw just drops. He's just in 7th heaven. And so I asked him afterwards because we had brought a bunch of photos, and he had this little album of cards. He collects wrestling cards. And I was like, I told him, I brought some pens with me, and I said, I know it's late, buddy, but if you want to, we can go outside. The theater they perform at's a really easy one to meet them if they're available, because you just go to the right side of the theater, and there's like this little barricaded area where the buses are, and they just walk right out to those buses. So it's
Yep.
it's very unique compared to like trying to autograph like in a stadium,
Yep.
because it's just you're right there. You're literally feet from them when they're getting onto their bus. And
Hmm.
so he was all for it. And so we go out there, and we get a few right off the bat. So Candice LeRae, who is Johnny Gargano's wife, she comes out and autographs for us. Um, and then we get 2 new up-and-coming NXT guys, one by the name of Bronson Reed, who's been on a few tapings of NXT, kind of an up-and-coming type guy, and Isaiah Swerve Scott, who's actually a local guy from Washington. He recently had a killer match against Roderick Strong on NXT and really performed well there. And then so we got those 3, which was really cool. And then Matt Riddle, who I'm a big fan of, just also, from his whole MMA background and all that.
Yeah, he's the man for sure. I
Yeah,
would love to
and just
meet
such a
him.
cool personality too. I mean, like he's so friendly. I mean, he
Hmm.
definitely has that like surfer dude vibe. But
Yep.
like super friendly guy. So he autographs a photo for us. Angelo Dawkins of the Street Profits comes out. He's taking photos and autographs a photo for us. So like my son gets a photo with Angelo Dawkins, and everyone's kind of waiting around. And then all of a sudden, off in the distance, we see Finn Balor walking to the bus.
Yep.
And everyone is going crazy at this point. They're like, Finn, oh my gosh, Finn, thanks for being here. And he kind of waves at everybody. And he's like, thanks guys. And, he goes and puts his luggage underneath like the bus where the luggage stuff is. And he kind of stops for a second and then like stands up and starts walking towards this crowd of fans. And I would say there's about 40 or 50 of us there at this point. And my son and I are about, like, I guess, like 2 people back, so like there's like a couple kids at the barricade, there's a couple adults between us, and then there's me and my son. And my son's on my shoulders because he wants to be able to see everyone coming out. And my son doesn't have his Finn Balor mask on at this time, but he brought it with him. So I look at him and I go, Aiden, I said, put on the mask. It's my son's name, Aiden. I go, Aiden, put on the mask.
Yep.
And he goes, why? I go, buddy, put on the mask. Just go, put it on. Like, trust me, put it on. And one of the guys that I'm standing next to sees that my son has the mask on. He's like, hey man, come on up kind of by me. He's like, your son's a Finn Balor fan. He deserves to see him. And I was like, oh, thanks, man. And that's what I love about the autograph community. For every kind of punk and jerk and things like that I'm sure we've all met and encountered, I would say there's twice as many just friendly people,
Yep.
They get it and they understand what it's about, and so I don't even know who this guy was. He was just like super willing to have me and my son kind of wedge up next to him so we could be a little bit closer. And Finn starts taking photos with people, signing some pictures and stuff. And this guy that had kind of brought us up next to us, Finn's around this guy, and he gets his autograph, and he says, hey, Finn, look at this kid above me. And Finn Balor looks at me and then looks up at my son and sees that my son has his mask on. And Finn's jaw just drops, and he starts grinning from ear to ear. And he's like, I got to get a picture with this kid.
Nice.
And so this helpful dad, this same dude, just literally grabs my son off my shoulders, hands him to Finn Balor, and Finn is like holding my kid and like, come on, Dad, take as many pictures as you need. And like, I'm snapping photos, and my son's got the mask on and everything. And then Finn even like pulls his mask up. He's like, let's everyone get a good look at your face, kid, and like take some normal photos, so my son's face is in the photo too. And everyone around us is like, this is the coolest moment ever. Look at this kid. Finn Balor's holding this kid and everything. And then he hands it back to me, and then I just kind of throw my photo out there, and I'm like, yeah, you mind, Finn? He's like, oh, no, of course not, and signs the photo. So talk about a moment and a half,
Yeah.
It was just, my son was in seventh heaven, and he was a 36-year-old man. I was in seventh heaven, too, because, opportunities to meet guys like that don't come around too often, especially in that type of context. And, watching them just be kind of so friendly and open with my family, it was really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's an experience you'll remember forever. That's for sure. And
yeah.
I'm sure he will too. He'll go to school and be like, I met Finn Balor,
Yeah, and he's got a couple friends in his class that are big wrestling fans and stuff. And so I think he'll kind of be the center of attention for a day or two while he gets to tell that story over and over again.
That's cool. That is awesome.
Yeah.
For sure. But yeah, so how was the event itself?
It was really, really strong. The card was well done. You had kind of your good mix of like what I would call kind of like the undercard, mid-level, like growing talent, plus a good mix. Like Pete Dunne was there and wrestled. Obviously we had like Undisputed Era, Finn Balor, Street Profits. They wrestled. You had Shayna Baszler that wrestled. Matt Riddle came out. Cassius Ohno was there. I was surprised at that one because I know he's been on NXT UK a lot lately. So it was a really nice mix. Some of the stuff, I guess you could say, is a little repetitive because obviously they use live shows to kind of like feel out certain feuds and kind of like experiment with things.
Right.
So there was a few things, that I know have kind of carried over from like NXT shows and stuff. But I don't mind that, because it's for them, that's the closest it comes to them like doing like a scrimmage or a practice for like a football team would do or a basketball team would do, You can't just go out there every week during the taping and be like, all right, what are we going to do? You have to kind of work stuff out, experiment, try things out and stuff. So I don't mind the repetitiveness of it just because I get that's what kind of has to happen. But for the setup and everything, it was a really cool thing. They started out, the first match was You had Breezango come out, so Tyler Breeze and Fandango, which kind of just, they're so funny and so goofy. It just kind of set like a really lighthearted tone for the whole night.
Yep.
And then, like you had about right towards the end, you had Pete Dunne versus Damian Priest, which was like really psychological. You had Pete Dunne like kind of focusing on Damian Priest's fingers and like manipulating his fingers. And I was just like so impressed with the fact that a guy like that can take a tiny body part like a finger and make it seem like he's working a leg, or working an arm. Like, it was just so cool to see that. It was like a long match, super hard hitting. They even did a couple of like dangerous spots because since the ring was on the stage, the like orchestra pit's right below that, so like if you were to say do like a suicide dive or anything, there was no barricade from you falling into the orchestra pit. So
Man.
Dunne and Priest did a couple of spots where they kind of do the classic like punch and they're kind of wobbling back, like whoa, all that, like they might fall in. So I mean, kudos to them for kind of like having that little element of danger in there. A couple really good high spots from them too. So I was really impressed with it, and the crowd was super hot. Like, the one thing I've always loved about Seattle crowds is we tend to kind of show our love when they come around, because we only get them about once a year, maybe twice. And so, other states and cities that are kind of lucky enough, like, I think of like your LAs, your Orlandos, your Atlantas, your New York, place like that, they kind of see them come around 3 to 4 to 5 times a year. We kind of show out pretty hardcore when they come out, because we want them to know that we want them here more. So the crowd was super hot all night, which was great.
That is awesome. I would love to go to an NXT show, but I've never really had the opportunity to do so. So hopefully, hopefully someday. But I did see when I was at the Garden, they did an NXT match, and that was the loudest the crowd was all night, was for NXT. So and that's awesome, man. That's good stuff. You're lucky living where you're living, let me tell you.
Yeah. I mean, and I do, because I know sometimes, there's certain cities that don't ever get to even have a sniff of any of these events, and that's one thing I've liked about AEW is I think they're trying to kind of like branch out to some places that don't necessarily always get the love either. Which I think is a smart thing for them too. So hopefully NXT does more of these live tours and kind of gets their product out there a little bit more. I also heard rumor that they're looking at taking their weekly show on the road. So rather than doing it at Full Sail every week, I heard they're going to actually start possibly doing some of their shows in other cities, which I think could be a huge boost for them as well.
Yeah, I heard that as well, and I hope that they do. I'm glad that Balor's in NXT, because I think he can be featured more, but I don't really know why they would bring him down to NXT like that. I mean, I guess it's just to maybe build the younger guys and feature him more, because he does get buried on the main roster. So I guess I could see it, but at the same time, when he showed up there, I was like, wow, like they brought him down to NXT all of a sudden out of nowhere. I mean, he didn't even, I figured he'd come back and go after Bray again, or something like that. But we didn't get that, so I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting. I was definitely, when I saw it, I was surprised. I think the one thing that, and my partner and I, Corey, my co-host, we've talked about this quite often on the show, is that ever since this whole NXT, USA shows come out, they've really tried to make it clear that like we're not the minor leagues anymore. We're a third brand, and so even though what's difficult is like you just said, and I think it's something that most fans feel, is that NXT still feels like you get called up. You know what I mean? Like if you go, you're getting called up. And I think they're really trying to establish that it's not a call up; it's a lateral move. And so, I mean, I get what they're trying to do. I do agree with you. He got buried, I think, far too much on the main roster. I don't get it. I don't know how you make him the first ever Universal Champion and then like have him go the route he went. But I think it could be interesting watching him fight guys like Adam Cole, Tommaso Ciampa, Velveteen Dream, Keith Lee, Matt Riddle. Like the list goes on and on of what's down there. And I don't think that's the last move that NXT is going to make. I could see a guy like Cesaro benefiting from going back over there. I mean, maybe even like a Sami Zayn. I wouldn't be surprised if other moves like that over the next year or so might take place.
Well, if you really look at the long list of wrestlers that were quote unquote free agents following the draft, I mean, there's a lot of talent there that they could just shift over to NXT and really stack the roster if they really wanted to.
Yeah,
So, and I think kind of in a way that's what they want to do because they're afraid of AEW whether they want to admit they are or not. but
right, and they should be. I mean, SmackDown. I haven't seen the numbers from this past episode, but from the one before that, it dropped 1 million viewers
mhm.
from their debut to that one, and AEW just continues to gain. The gap between NXT and AEW has been widening every week.
Yeah, it's pretty
And so,
substantial already, and that's just
yeah,
yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. And then I saw a weird thing which caught my attention today. I don't most of the time, honestly, I don't watch SmackDown. I just
hmm
forget that it's on Friday nights. I'm usually doing other
yeah,
things, but I saw this commercial today, and it said SmackDown on FS1 this week for 1 week only, and I thought, okay, so you signed this big deal with Fox, and then you move it over to FS1, which in my mind is a step down. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, and I think it's because of the World Series. If I heard that correctly, I think it's because Fox is hosting the World Series.
uh,
Um, but again, I feel like there is a way around that. I was kind of surprised by the FS1 move too, because everything I had heard was that if when this whole rumored move to Fox was happening, as everyone said, well, if it ends up going to FS1, that's where it's going to go to die.
hmm
And so I kind of thought the same thing initially as you. Was like, FS1 already, like 3 weeks in, and then
yep,
I heard I think it's because of the World Series broadcast, and I was like, okay, like I hope it's that, because if they're trying to test it out, if it's going to work better there, I'm like, you might as well just cancel it now because it's
yep.
not going to.
I even looked at the ratings because I was like, are the ratings really that far in the toilet that they're bringing them down to FS1 already? You know what I mean? But
Right.
yeah, I mean that's wild. But if they do it because of the series, I understand that. It's whatever.
Yeah.
But oh well, we'll see. I'm not much of a baseball guy, so I forgot about the series.
Right.
But
Right. Me
it is
too.
what it is. But anyway, so what do you think of this whole Seth Rollins burning down the Funhouse? You might have covered this already, but we'll cover it again. Why not? you
Well,
know.
I don't think Corey and I got into this one because we usually record like on Mondays, and so quite
hmm
often like we're like recording as Raw's happening, so we kind of like talk about like the previous week.
Yep.
Um, I've stated it before, and I'm gonna keep stating it. I The Hell in the Cell match with Seth Rollins and Bray Wyatt was the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. Um, you have already screwed up what Bray Wyatt was building. I think by doing that stupid finish of like he can't continue, and then like having him
Yep.
wake up and give the mandible claw, whatever you want to call it now, to Seth Rollins. It was just dumb.
Yep.
And then this whole Firefly Funhouse, like I don't get why you burn it. It doesn't like I don't know what the purpose is, because and here's what bugs me about this too is you move Bray Wyatt to SmackDown, which I think is a fine move,
Yep.
because if you're looking for credible opponents for Brock Lesnar, right? Because now he's the WWE champion over there.
hmm
Bray's a credible opponent, right?
Yep.
Roman's a credible opponent, but like that's really about it that's over there, right? Like if
Yep.
you look and size people up, those are the two guys, right? But
Yep.
now you still have Seth Rollins and Bray Wyatt fighting at Crown Jewel, which is now becoming unbelievably predictable because
Yeah.
if you look at that card already, right? Yeah, you have Tyson Fury versus Braun. That'll be probably a win for Tyson Fury. You have Cain Velasquez versus Brock Lesnar. That'll be the only one that I feel like is kind of a toss-up, even though I feel like it's got to be Brock, because are you really going to put the belt on Cain Velasquez, his first match in? And if you do, that's a bold move.
Is it really for the
So
belt though? Is it? Is
yeah,
it
I
really?
think it's actually for the belt. I think it's for the title. I
Hmm.
would have to double check that, but I think it's actually for the title.
Huh.
Um,
Cause
and
I.
then you have this Bray Wyatt Seth Rollins match that's now like falls count anywhere and cannot be stopped for whatever reason. Well,
Yep.
again, they're on different brands. Bray's on SmackDown. So
Yeah.
this whole no wild card rule, all this BS is now kind of already out the window. And two, are you going to have a guy on SmackDown win the Universal title?
Yeah.
Because if you're not, now you've had a situation where you've built this guy up to be this terror for months now, and then his first title opportunity, he gets like a ref stoppage, and now his second one, he's going to lose, because I don't see how they're going to let him win if he's on SmackDown, unless you're going to literally throw caution to the wind and say, let's just have both champions on SmackDown and have some Raw guy come over and try to chase it.
Yep. Well, let's just backtrack just a little bit. I mean, they build Bray Wyatt as this monster, and then, like you said, they had that stoppage, and to me, it killed all of his momentum. Now I can't take the Fiend seriously. It's just like, okay, this unstoppable monster. Just all of a sudden, they protected him. You know what I mean? Like, and it doesn't. People are like, oh, but he got up and he looked like Michael Myers or whatever. No. It looked terrible,
Yeah.
Like
I was loving the no cells, like the one counts and everything were beautiful. Like, as those were going on, I was like, he's going to win, and this is going to be freaking amazing. And then like 17 curb stomps or whatever maybe it was. And the chairs, I was like, no, they're really going to do this? Like, they're really going to do it this way? And I was just, I was angry. And you could tell the crowd was angry. Like, they were booing left and right.
Well, they were chanting AEW.
Chants, going on in the main event. Like, come on.
Yep. I mean, and honestly, if they want to help AEW by booking trash like that, then go right ahead. But, but like you were saying, I think, because I don't think Bray's going to win. I don't think Bray's going to win at Crown Jewel or whatever. And I don't think they can have Seth win either. So honestly, I think we're headed for another no contest. I do. I think they're going to do it again.
They're booking themselves into a corner, though, because I think I read something that said that they've now stipulated that the match cannot be stopped for any reason.
Well, I had read something, okay, and now this is going to be another, like, breaking news, spoiler kind of deal. If it's even true, I don't know. I'm kind of ruining the fun if it is true, but the thing that I read said that the puppets are going to appear and drag Seth Rollins to hell, basically, is how...
Oh, good gracious.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So, I mean, if that's how they go, which, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, that would make sense, but at the same time, like, why? Why would you do that?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But and like I said, I don't know how credible it is. The internet, you can't believe it. You know what I mean? It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen, but that's just a theory floating out around on the internet. If you look hard enough, you can find it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what purpose that serves. I don't know. I heard a crazy rumor that the whole burning of the Firefly Funhouse was to make. It was a crazy rumor. They said they were trying to make Seth Rollins heel, and I don't know. I mean, if that's what you're going for, I think he's doing that on his own because everyone's hating him by how they're booking everything.
Yep.
So I don't think you need him to do that.
No.
So I don't know. I'll be intrigued to see what they do. I mean, if the puppets come alive and they drag Seth Rollins somewhere, then I don't know. I mean, maybe that's what the Saudi Arabian audience wants to see. I don't know. I know we don't. I don't want to see that. I want to see Bray win, but I want to see him have the strap. That's what I want.
The thing is like, with them doing that show, where they're doing that show, like, they can get away with anything over there. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like, those fans, they never get to see wrestling or anything, and not to say that they're not, good wrestling fans and whatever, I'm sure it's fine, but, like, they never get to see wrestling, so, like, they're just appreciative that WWE is even coming over there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
they definitely treat those shows as though, like, it's its own separate thing.
Yep.
Like whatever happens over there doesn't necessarily apply to what happens when they come back.
Yep.
And again, if you're a smart wrestling fan, you don't look at it that way. And I think that's where, like, people like you and me and, like, Corey, like, we get frustrated because we want to see continuity. We want to see kind of like a continual flow to the storylines, and things like Crown Jewel kind of disrupt it,
Yep.
a little bit, because they're kind of these like separate entities that like don't necessarily follow the patterns of what's going on, and they come back and just pick up where they left off, and it's like that's not how it works.
Yeah, that's the hardcore wrestling fans will tear that apart. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Oh yeah.
um, certainly not a good move on their part. But
No, not at all.
whatever they do, I guess, is whatever they do. But
Right.
anyway, enough with that train wreck. We'll move right on to AEW, which could equally be a train wreck. Who knows?
Yeah.
there's some things. There's some things going on over there. So
Yes.
let's just talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I don't know, and I would love to hear your thoughts on some of the things going on with AEW, but there's some really strong positives I see. I think their talent pool is deeper than people expected. I've come to enjoy this new tag team Private Party. I think they're really strong.
they're
I
good. They're super
Yeah,
athletic. Holy cow.
yeah, they almost have that, like, not exactly, but like they kind of remind me of the Street Profits a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
in that sense. So I dig them. The Lucha Brothers, I think, are really strong.
Yep.
This whole like Jungle Boy and like Luchasaurus and all those guys, like that's a strong team. Chris Jericho, obviously, as champ, I think is brilliant. This whole Inner Circle group is, I think, really solid.
Yep.
I dig the talent pool. Dustin Rhodes, formerly Gold Dust, is having like a resurrection of his career like already. Cody Rhodes, solid.
Yep.
Hangman Page, all these guys. But for me, a couple things that stand out to me. The world was obsessed with the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega before all this, right? Like that was kind of some of the big draws, right?
Oh yeah.
I'll be honest, I don't see it. I don't get it. I don't get why people like them so much. I've tried really, really hard to watch them, like really, really look at it unbiasedly and say, okay, what do they bring to the table that other wrestlers don't?
Yep.
And I can't find it. Like maybe Omega a little bit. Like his last week in this tag match that he had with Hangman Page against Moxley and Pac,
Mm-hmm.
I thought was better than his previous week. His little Snapdragon suplex, I think, is a really solid looking move. It looks really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And he does fly around a little bit, but I feel like a guy like Seth Rollins could match that. I feel like a guy like Dolph Ziggler could match that.
Finn
Daniel
Balor.
Bryan, Rey Mysterio, Finn Balor, Adam Cole. Like I could think
Yeah.
of 10 plus guys in WWE that have that same style. The Young Bucks, I know everyone's been obsessed with them for so long. I have yet to see a reason why. Their move set is minimal at best.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see it. I don't know. I don't know about you, but I don't see what the hype is around those three.
Well, I can tell you what the hype is with the Young Bucks, but Kenny Omega, like you said, I don't get the whole Omega thing. I just don't.
Yeah.
Like you said, there's 20 wrestlers in the WWE that can probably out wrestle Kenny Omega, like,
Yeah.
and I mean, he. Okay, this is the thing with Kenny Omega. His character almost feels to me like he thinks that he's supposed to be like a video game character in real life. Like that's
Yeah.
that's almost what he. I just don't get it because he does the whole mannerisms thing with the whole, I don't know, he dresses up like for the one event it was like Fight for the Fallen or something. He dressed up as some like video game character or something and was doing the whole mannerisms and stuff. It's like, come on, dude. You be creative and create a gimmick for yourself that's not, oh,
Right.
look at me, I'm this video game character that wrestles. Like,
Right.
no.
Right.
That's just that's the Omega thing with me. But I don't know. Maybe as we go down the road, I'm hoping his match with Moxley just puts him over the edge. Maybe that'll convince me that Kenny Omega is a legitimate. I don't want to say it'll convince me that he's a legitimate wrestler, but right now I look at him as a comedy act. So,
Yeah. I mean, he's very serviceable in the ring. You know, like
Yep.
I mean, would I take him over another 20 superstars in the WWE? Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's if you gave me a choice between, I mean, sadly, like No Way Jose and Omega, I'll
Yeah.
take Omega. If you
Uh-huh.
gave me a choice between Bo Dallas and Kenny Omega, I'm taking, like I can think
Yeah.
of 10 or 15 guys that I would easily replace with
Oh
Kenny
yeah.
Omega. But like, would I make Kenny Omega the centerpiece of my division? No. Could I see him like fight for like an IC title or like a US title? Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see him as like a main event guy, and that's kind of the same with the Young Bucks. Like to me, what the Young Bucks do are exactly what the Usos do.
Yep.
They're super kick happy. They're team oriented. I would much rather take a team like the Revival
Mm-hmm.
or the Viking Raiders above the Young Bucks. I like that style of it better. I just the whole flashy pose. They have this kind of rockers vibe, which I guess is kind of like a cool throwback. But I'm just like,
Yep.
I don't know. I don't see the this hidden gem of a talent that's like been under wraps on the indie scene for years. Like everyone just seems to drool over the Young Bucks, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't see it.
Yep. Well, what it is with the Young Bucks is people. Well, they're gimmicky. People like the gimmick. You know what I mean? People like
Yeah,
this. People like the super kicks and they do some crazy like ladder spots and all that kind of thing and some crazy tag team moves that other people might not do. But like for the most part, I get what you're saying, but the thing with them is people like that whole like, oh, they're brothers and they do this cool like tag team finishing move thing, and then they dive off ladders through tables together and whatever. So that's what gets them over. You know what I mean? But I I agree with you. I think the Lucha Bros are better, but
yeah,
that's just me. I don't know. But yeah, that's why people like them so much is because they're gimmicky and they kind of fit in with Omega and they've been doing things with Omega and Omega's over and they're over by default and not to say that they're not good wrestlers because they are. I think they are the top tier of tag team wrestling, especially in AEW. But I like you said, I don't get it. I was glad that they lost to Private Party the other night,
yeah.
so
And,
but
and that's the one thing I will say I do respect. I mean, one bare respect I have for that group is, you know, you're taking a risk as these. I mean, because you got to really think AEW was basically founded by Matt and Nick Jackson and Cody Rhodes, and then you had like Kenny Omega kind of involved in that as well. And so you start to run the risk of, okay, are we just here to promote ourselves, or are
hmm
we here to promote wrestling? And if I remember correctly, I think currently the Young Bucks actually have a losing record. Because one thing I like about AEW is they show the record, and I like that. Like it's
yep.
a cool little nuance. Like they'll show you what the person's overall record is, and I believe the Young Bucks have a losing record, and I think Kenny Omega might as well, or he's like close to
Kenny
it, like
Omega
three and
hasn't
two.
won
Or
a match yet. Not
oh,
a
Kenny Omega hasn't won a match.
right. He hasn't won a singles contest yet. He's won a
Okay.
tag match, but not a singles
Okay.
contest. But
But I like that, like they're obviously here to put over other talent, and I do respect them for that because they have not made it all about them. Like I thought the match, like you said, you just mentioned the one against Private Party. I thought they did a really good job of letting Private Party shine. Like
yeah,
I really thought they were like, hey, we're going to do as much as we can to make you look good, and that is the sign of a good wrestler. Not only
yep.
can you make yourself look good, but can you make the other people you're working with look good? And they definitely know how to do that. And so I do respect them for like letting the spotlight shine on the other people they've brought into that company and not just making it about the four of them, including
Yep.
Cody Rhodes in that.
And to be honest, I wasn't digging the whole Private Party thing at first. I was like, who are these guys, basically? And it kind of
Yeah,
reminded me of the Young Bucks in a way, and I was like, oh, another Young Bucks, here we go. And then they faced the Young Bucks, and they put them over, and I was like, wow, these guys can work. Like, all right,
yeah,
I dig it now, you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. And
So,
I can see that gimmicky thing you're talking about, though, that kind of reminiscing of the Young Bucks. Like, they're very, like, spot oriented, too,
hmm
you know. I would love to see AEW, even though their tag division is strong, it's too much tag team. Like,
hmm
it's like every other match is a tag match, and
Yep.
the refs have no control of the tag matches. Like that match against Private Party, I think I watched the Young Bucks perform like they would tag and then like do like 5 or 6 moves, like double team moves, or like Matt
Mm-hmm.
Jackson or Nick Jackson would just like interfere in the match. And at least with the WWE, like you see the ref counting, like 1, 2, or like if a
Yep.
guy interferes, they try to stop him. There's like no rhyme or reason to that when it comes to an AEW tag match. The refs just literally kind of stand there absentmindedly, and
Yeah.
it takes away of some of the realism. Like we all know it's fake. We all know it's scripted. So spoiler
Mm-hmm.
alert for those of you that are listening that don't think it is. But it is. It's scripted. We all know it's going to happen, and so I
Yep.
get that. But like, you still want to have a little element of realism to it. Like, don't make it so egregiously obvious that like you don't care what's going on.
Yep.
And that's one thing that's really bothered me is not only the saturation of tag team matches, and like you said, having guys like Kenny Omega and John Moxley like square off in these tag team matches, and we could just have them do these barn burners on their own,
Yeah.
and then having these kind of like loose rules with tag matches where it feels like there is that the refs there just to do nothing.
Yep.
That's really bothered me a lot.
And don't let John Moxley take Kenny Omega all the way backstage to do a table spot that we all saw coming. Like, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
yeah, oh
oh,
yeah.
a glass table. I wonder what's gonna happen. And then he just does it.
Uh,
Like, I get it. It was cool. Like, honestly, it looked like it kind of hurt, to be honest. But
yeah,
and it was cool. Like, I popped for it. I'm not gonna lie. I enjoyed it.
right.
But like at the same time, I was like, okay, so Moxley can just take him out of the match, and the ref does nothing, and then we just pretend like Omega and Moxley were never in the match. Don't put them in the match
Yeah,
then. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. That's what's been hard is there's no like real sport element to it. At least with WWE, you'll see things kind of like be adjusted in that way. Like they'll DQ a match or they'll do something. This is just kind of it just continues.
yep.
That match with Moxley where he took him back, I think was when Kenny tagged with the Young Bucks, and it was
Hmm.
just like now it's just a 3-on-2, and it's like what why like you said the glass spot was so predictable. Like as
Hmm.
soon as they made it to that very set up backstage VIP area, I was like, well, there's a glass table. Can't wait to see what this is. I mean, it was a cool spot. Don't get me wrong, because it's fresh.
Yep.
WWE don't do stuff like that. So, I mean, it was fresh and it was unique, but it was also very predictable. And it's like, if you're trying to get away from the WWE product, don't do the same things us as WWE fans are pissed about. We're pissed about the predictability. You're making it just like that.
Yep.
You're and one thing, it was interesting, a couple people around me at the NXT event, we started talking about AEW, and a lot of people that I was talking to at the event said they were really upset with the production value of AEW, that it looks still kind of low budget. And I feel that a little bit. It almost has like a TNA Impact feel to it, and
Yep.
kind of the stage setup and all that. Like it could afford to improve and modernize a little bit. Like I don't know. I don't like their stage setup. Some of the production value of it just doesn't seem as strong.
Well, the camera cuts also get them too. Sometimes they cut the camera to like nothing. Like it's like,
Yeah,
okay, what am I looking at here? I'm looking at like the side of
right.
the ring, and there's wrestlers wrestling in the ring, and you just missed the spot because you cut the camera. You know what I mean?
Yep,
Like,
yep,
don't
yep.
don't do that.
Yeah,
So, and I mean, of course, I understand it's a big production. Things happen. But like WWE has it down to a science. If there's gonna be a big spot, they're not gonna miss it. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
And they gotta get there. They're gonna grow. Like I get it, but like don't miss the big spots if you're trying to impress. Especially if I just tune in and don't know what AEW is, and then you're doing a cool spot and you miss it. Like people are gonna tune out. So
Right,
it's
right. But
like,
like you said, it's going to take time. I mean, the guy funding this whole thing, is a wrestling fan but has no prior promotional experience.
yep,
You have wrestlers who are essentially in charge of all this. Now, granted, they have, like, if I know correctly, Billy Gunn is back there as like a backstage guy. I don't know if he's like a full agent and does bookings or whatever, but he's like working with them. I think Dean Malenko's over there now too. Like,
yep,
so I mean, they have some knowledgeable people, but you also have this company headed by people who still have to perform every night too. And
hmm,
so, I agree with you. Like, it'll take some time, and I think this next week will be what, episode 4 or 5. So I
yeah,
mean, they
yep,
haven't even put together a full I mean, they haven't even gotten to their next pay-per-view yet, you know. So I
Yep.
think once they get that going, I think they'll get their footing. But you know, I think people are just hyped about it right now because it's fresh and new, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and that's justifiable. It's understandable. But I think that's also why the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega were so popular too. Is they were like the anti WWE. It was like, no, 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 like we don't need to go there to make money. We can make money on our own. And people just thought it was cool that they like refused to sell out by going to WWE. And it's like, I mean, that's great, but you're also kind of hypocritical if you're believing that because look at someone like AJ Styles, right, who was like Mr. Independent Scene, right, Mr.
Yep.
Japan, Mr. TNA. Like he came to WWE, and I would argue has had a even better career since then. You know, I mean, he was a champ in TNA and a champ in Japan and stuff, but he's been a multi-time champ since returning to WWE and has all had some crazy matches with, you know, freaking Shane McMahon and
Yep.
Seth Rollins. I mean, he's had some mega matches, you know, and so it's a little hypocritical if people are like, you don't need WWE to be famous. It's like, well, yeah, but you're also cheering for guys like AJ Styles who sold out, but yet you're saying that guys like Omega and the Young Bucks are great because they haven't. Like, you got to pick a lane, you know, like.
Yep.
Are you gonna hate AJ Styles just because he went where the money is? You know, like no,
Absolutely
like
not.
he did what was best for his future. Like kudos for him.
Yep. Yep. For sure. And like, well, like the thing that gets me is like with Darby, like the Darby Jericho thing. I called I called the finish like before it even happened. I called
Yeah,
it like that day, that afternoon. I was talking to another wrestling fan, and I was like, Hager's gonna beat the hell out of Darby, and they're gonna end it in DQ. I just knew, and they
yeah,
they did that, and they've done a couple other things that they've just walked right into. So they're kind of doing the whole predictability thing a little too much for me. It's like I get it, but like I would have liked to have seen, maybe Darby goes over and then people are like, oh shit, Darby's the champ and he just beat Jericho, and then
yeah.
to save your title, if you want to save your title, put it on Cody, you know, and
Right,
and
right.
then have Jericho be like the mega heel that's just pissed now with his stable, and he's just like chasing the I mean that to me is more fun if he has this awesome stable and they're chasing the belt. That's more fun to me than him having the belt and having them help him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Running roughshod over everybody until he can get it back. You know, kind of doing all these dastardly tactics. Like I agree with you. It'd be a great twist on things because I don't think anyone. I mean, now granted, I like Darby Allin. I learned I think he's from Seattle, which is quite interesting. Being a
yep.
Northwest guy, I was like, hey, kudos. Hey, that coffin drop thing he does is really cool. I don't know why, because really just the drop, it's like a backward splash. But I don't know.
Yep.
I kind of dig the like coffin element of it, like the
Mm-hmm.
way he poses in midair. Like I'm just like I don't know, kind of cool. But you know, I think people don't necessarily take him seriously just yet as a contender because he's so new to the TV audience, you know. And so talk about getting a splash, right? Take a guy like that and
Yep.
say, yeah, we'll throw the strap, even if it's for a few weeks, and
Yep.
like you said, and then Cody takes it. Like, yeah, we'll
I
throw the strap on you for a minute and give that headline worthy moment.
Yep, the shock value, and like I said, even if he would have won, and then like the next week they put it on Cody, that's fine. But like, just for that 1 second, everyone will be like, "Holy shit, they're different." You know what I mean? Like they
Yeah,
took it off
yeah,
Jericho because everybody knew that Jericho was gonna win. I mean, it's
right,
and
right.
and I understand why they did it. They did it to legitimize their title, but
Oh yeah,
at
yeah,
the,
and you know, I mean, you think you have Full Gear, their next pay per view, headlined by Cody and Jericho. That's a much more attractive headline than
mm,
Darby Allin and Cody Rhodes. You know, so like, I mean, I do completely understand what they're doing, right? Like they're trying to establish their identity and trying to establish themselves. But you know, with that said, you could also afford to take some risks. You know, um, and and I feel like they are playing it a little too safe at the moment.
yep. For sure, but I do like their pay-per-view schedule. WWE, we know WWE, they run like what, twice a month, every month. You know what I mean?
About just about, yeah,
Like,
it's pretty crazy.
but AEW seems to be in that about 3 month groove. They run one pay-per-view every 3 months, which I dig. I mean, that's cool.
Yeah, Yeah, it
So,
doesn't oversaturate it. It makes you look forward to things. You can kind of build stuff. It gives you plenty of time to adjust things. Sometimes WWE kind of backs himself into a booking corner because they have so many pay-per-views.
hmm
You're just kind of churning out feuds because you got to get to the next pay-per-view. Where with the 3 month thing, you have some time to really play out some solid feuds and not just kind of chew them up and spit them out within a few weeks. You can move on to the next one, or have the
yep,
repetitive nature. Sometimes WWE will have the same two people headline like 2 or 3 pay-per-views in a row, and they'll just kind of like change up the stipulation,
well,
with that
Bray
whole
and
3 month
Seth,
schedule.
the Bray and Seth thing going on.
Oh God,
This is
yeah,
their third match or whatever. But
yeah.
anyway, not to interrupt you, but that
Oh
just
no,
came
yeah,
right to
you're
mind
totally
there.
fine.
But
Yeah, you're totally fine. It just, yeah, I think with the 3 month gap, or so, or even spacing out, even just not even every month, like it gives you a chance to really build a feud up. Like looking at like the Moxley Omega feud, they've been building it. It's been
yep,
built. It hasn't just had the blow off within a few weeks. It's been building and building and building, and so I agree with you on that point. I do think their schedule of that is kind of that less is more, like
yep,
if we don't do it as often, you're going to want it even more. And,
hmm
and that is a smart business decision because, again, they know one thing that WWE is struggling with is that when you're putting out pay-per-views every month, it's hard to make things entertaining, and make them different every month. And so I think they kind of saw that and said, well, let's make sure we don't do the same thing. So I give them
yep.
credit for that.
But the thing about it is, if you do book that way, where you're building and building, your matches have to deliver. And if they don't deliver,
Yeah.
people are gonna be very angry. You know what I mean?
Yes. Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. But
like,
hopefully the guys do. I think Moxley and Omega will.
yep,
I mean, they're two talented guys. I think Rhodes and Jericho hopefully will.
yep,
I mean, I feel like I can kind of see this whole like they're gonna fight, and then like the inner circle is gonna come out and try to interfere, which is gonna cause the elite to come out and interfere, and it's gonna, you know what I mean? Like,
mm-hmm,
I kind of see that coming. I don't see Cody taking the belt yet because I think he doesn't want to have that spotlight on him just yet.
yep,
But then again, I don't necessarily know because they just ran a package last week where like this whole video production of Cody and how much he needs this championship and how it'll cement his legacy as a blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay, so you're gonna do that, but then you're not gonna give it to. I don't know. I don't know. There's some things I foresee like that seem a little all too predictable.
yep.
And I don't necessarily know if they fully know what they're going to do with it yet. So I'll be intrigued to see what happens.
I think they're more into like the slow burn kind of deal. Like, I think Cody's gonna chase it for quite some time before they
Yeah,
put it on him. But then again, in my opinion, and not to say that Chris Jericho's not a great wrestler, because he is. He's amazing. Probably one of the top three maybe of all time if you really look at things.
yeah,
But like, he's getting up there. He's kind of slowing down. Like
yeah,
the match with him and Darby. Like, I wanted him to like take more like bumps and stuff, but Darby, he ended up taking like most of the bumps, which is fine. But like, I with it being a street fight, I would have liked to have had at least one spot where Darby just destroys Chris Jericho. And
yeah,
we didn't really
yeah.
get that. But
Right.
and I mean, he is up there, so I get it. But at the same time, it's like, okay, how many times am I gonna watch Chris Jericho wrestle somebody like Darby who can like fly around and stuff, and then there's Jericho who's like really slow and just kind of, oh, I can hit the back elbow as my finisher and it'll put you away, and you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just,
No, I agree with you. It's a little. I mean, he's what I think 50 now,
yeah, he's
and
up there.
so I mean, you're gonna have some mobility issues, and I mean the guy. I mean, again, I agree with you. We've debated about our top wrestlers of all time several times on our show. Corey is obsessed with Shawn Michaels. That's his guy. I usually argue that it's Ric Flair. I also am a huge fan of Randy Orton. Heel
hmm
Randy Orton, not face Randy Orton. Heel Randy Orton's way better.
Oh yeah,
But I would say Jericho's right in that mix for me. Like he's at least top five.
yep,
But with that said, he's that way because he's been doing this now for I think 30 plus years. And
yep,
so, you can't expect a guy at that age to be able to go out and bring the house down. every single night. So I agree with
Yep.
you. Like, at some point you have to take it off of him, just for the sake of, like, at some point it's going to stop being believable that he's like as good as he is. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't have him some year and a half, 2 year long reign, because you're looking at these other athletic guys going like, okay, he can't match their athleticism. The only thing that Jericho has going for him is he has the stable around him. So you can say, okay, he's a really damn good leader. He knows how to get these guys to work in his favor. And that's what he still has going for him. I don't know if there's anybody right now in WWE or AEW that's better on the mic than Jericho. And I'm
That's his
excluding
thing.
Paul Heyman from that, because to me Paul Heyman is the best, but Paul Heyman's not an active wrestler. So
Yep.
I'm going to take him off that discussion. But wrestler wise, I don't know if there's anyone better than Chris Jericho right now when it comes to being on the microphone, and that's at least what he has going for him.
Yep.
Because he seems and looks the part of a heel.
Yep.
And he's got these guys kind of in his corner now, and so you can definitely milk that, like, kind of like cowardly heel thing, and I say cowardly in the sense that he's got like Jake Hager and stuff coming out to help him. You can milk that for a little while you build some more stars.
Yep.
Figure out when you want to put it on one of them.
And he can really get anything over. That's the thing, because like you said, he's the best on the mic. Did you see somebody threw a hot dog in the ring,
Yes.
and he got the hot dog over, man?
I was hoping you were to bring that up, because I did. And then I saw the greatest, like, it was like the greatest meme I'd ever seen about Chris Jericho, and it said a list of things Jericho has gotten over in the last 5 years, and it said a scarf, a clipboard, and a wiener. And
Yep.
it was just like, it's so true. Like, that man has literally gotten the most random inanimate objects over just because he's that good at what he does, like, on the mic,
Yep.
And so I mean, I love the guy. Like, his podcast is hilarious. It's really informative too.
Yep.
He's just an all-around legend at what he does. And so, if you're going to put it on somebody right now and let people chase, he's the best option for it.
Yep. And I kind of trashed his match with Darby a little bit just because he didn't take a big spot. But, like, watching that match, he still, like, got Darby over. If I'm, like, a fan that just, like, tuned in and I see that, I'm like, oh, who's Darby? Because he got him over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. He gave him, like, some sympathetic vibes too, like when he duct taped his hands and
yep.
all that stuff. Like, he definitely helped elevate him, and I think that's one thing. Obviously, like, Santana and Ortiz, who used to formerly LAX,
Mm-hmm.
they're already veterans. Hager's already a veteran, but the Sammy Guevara kid that they have in that group too, I think that's what Jericho's going to help. That's another young guy like Allen that I look at that Jericho, I think, is just going to help continue to put over. And that's one thing I see in Jericho. His persona plays this whole self-centered vibe, but I definitely would say Jericho's at a place right now where he's very willing to let the young guys shine. Like, he knows his career ain't lasting forever. And so I think he's very okay letting those guys have those moments.
Yep.
So I respect him a lot for that, and I can't wait to see how they use Guevara to kind of, like, become that second singles guy. And I mean, it's a classic wrestling storyline. At some point, Guevara is going to break away from the group and go against Jericho. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, we already know that's coming.
It's going to be like when Rollins left the Shield. That's what they're going to go for. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Or just like when Batista left Evolution. Like,
yep.
I mean, it's such a classic, like, wrestling program,
Which is
but
fine if it's done right, Like,
oh yeah. And I think Jericho is the guy that can do it right. I can't wait to see how he helps build Guevara up, so that when Guevara does eventually break out, it's like this just mega moment and everyone just kind of goes crazy for it.
Yep. And I do think to get now, obviously they have Jericho on the mic, like we said, can get anything over. But, like, with the backstage, if they did more backstage stuff, like even like the Moxley Omega table spot, if they would have just, like, cut to that and had them, like, fighting in the back and then he goes through the table, then that would have been fine. That would have got that over more for me. Like, instead of, oh, this is, like, super gimmicky because they were in the match and then now they're going backstage to this, thing that's set up and whatever. But, like, if they would do more backstage stuff where it's, like, they can have segments like, I don't know, like, remember when Kurt Angle did the whole thing with Austin, I think it was, and Austin threw his medals into the river and whatever, and
Yeah,
all that. Like,
yeah,
that's cool. They need to do stuff like that, and I haven't seen that from them yet, and it's kind of, and I think it would, explain their characters more, because to the regular fan, they don't know who Sammy Guevara is. They don't know
right.
who Darby Allin is, or Rio or whatever. They could get their people more over by doing these little backstage segments and telling a little bit of a backstory to the character. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's something that stood out to me too. Is that, and I do get they're trying to really emphasize like their wrestling product. Let you see these people like kind of like in the ring. But I mean, outside of a few small interviews like after matches, I don't really recall much of anything in terms of, like you said, like these backstage things. And I think of these guys again, like Adam Hangman Page is a guy that comes to mind for me about this. I had never watched Hangman Page wrestle until AEW, right? I had heard his name, but I'd never seen him perform until he was a part of AEW. I could tell you what his gimmick is. Like, he's a guy that wears a cowboy vest and looks to be like cowboy style wrestling boots, and he comes out to like a Western theme song.
Yep.
Why? You know what I mean? Like what's the reason behind that? Like, why are you a cowboy slash like westerny guy? But
yep.
like you said, there's no backstage that gives us that insight. And like I remember NXT's first episode, they didn't have Johnny Gargano or Adam Cole on it, but they did video packages for them that talked about who they were and what they're about. And again, you think, right, like someone that turns on NXT for the first time, now you've seen that. So when you see Gargano and you see Adam Cole, you know kind of a little bit more about who they're about.
Yep.
AEW would be smart to do stuff like that for those guys like Omega, like Hangman Page. Guevara would be another good one to do it for. Darby Allin, I think talk about some of the packages you could do with Darby Allin.
Yeah.
Like, you could have him be a mix of like a Bray Wyatt meets Viking Raiders meets Aleister Black type of like backstage dark corners, dimly lit. Like, gosh, like there's a gold mine sitting there with those types of things. John Moxley, you could do some really cool backstage stuff with. So I don't know. I'm surprised they haven't gone that route yet to expose that additional side. I think they're almost relying on the fact that like our crowd's made up of really big indie people that love the indies, so they already know who these guys are. And it's like, no, you're on a national cable network now. Now, like, you're gonna have people just scrolling through your channels and stumbling upon you. Like, you gotta help them figure out who these guys are too.
Yep. And if you do like a well-produced backstage segment, even if people don't see it, if it's good, it creates a buzz on the internet. Like, oh, what's going on? Like way back in the day when Jericho was coming back, and they did like the Save Us thing, and it just kept like popping up with the whole Save Us thing, and everyone was like, who is this? And it like created such a buzz, and then all of a sudden like Jericho showed up, and then it just like exploded. If they did something like that to get it over, I mean, that'd be ideal, But But we'll see where they go. But that's kind of like we said with the Omega and the Young Bucks, and then the lack of the storytelling. I like that it's more wrestling, but I also like the whole storytelling thing. Like that's what wrestling is. It's a story, so you got to kind of build it. But
yeah, you can find a good mix with it. I do. Sometimes WWE gets too story oriented. It's like, gosh, every single Raw starts with a 20-minute promo.
Yep.
So like you said, I appreciate that AEW wants to emphasize the wrestling more, and that's great. But you still got to have a little bit of both. We gotta know if we're gonna care about these guys or take them seriously or hate them or love them, fill in the blank. We gotta know some reasons as to why. And right now, like, I know why I should hate Jericho. I know why I should hate the Inner Circle. I know why I should like Cody. I don't know why else I should like or dislike anybody else. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, I don't fully know. I don't know.
And even if they give them like a 3-minute spot, you know what I mean? Like, okay, we're going to run this promo for Darby this week and let people know what's going on. And then next week we'll run a promo for, Omega or whoever. And if they just give them like a 3 minute spot, once a week, they like feature a wrestler. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
to just kind of give people an idea of what's going on. I think
yeah,
that would be good for them. But
yeah.
overall, I still love it. I mean, I think they're doing better things than WWE for sure.
Oh yeah, competition's great, and more variety. Like I think Corey mentioned this on our last podcast. 99 times out of 100, he and I definitely like fast forward through major chunks of Raw and major chunks of
Oh yeah.
SmackDown. But he said that he was saying this last episode that he looks forward to Wednesday nights. Like
Uh-huh.
he avidly knows that he's got 4 solid hours of wrestling to watch, and he usually enjoys watching every second of it.
Yep.
And that's a testament, to what NXT is doing, but also, like you said, to what AEW is bringing to the table. It's
Mm-hmm.
giving people another reason to really get excited and watch. And I'm kind of in the same boat. I've fast forward through small little bits here and there, but nowhere near. I mean, there's times I won't even barely bother to watch a whole episode of like SmackDown or Raw. I'll just kind of like
Yep.
check the highlights on Twitter and Instagram and watch little clips and videos.
Yep.
I've pretty much watched AEW start to finish,
Yep.
and made sure, maybe I fast forward through some entrances or some spots that I know, like they'll do that cutaway. It's like when they go to a commercial, but they have it like on split screen, kind of on one side. Like
Yep.
I'll fast forward through that because it's kind of just a bunch of little holds and stuff to get back to get back from the commercial. But
Right.
other than that, I watch because I want to see what they're gonna do.
Yep.
And
I watch
that's a
AEW
good thing.
live every week, so
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
it's just crazy. The competition they've created is just
yeah.
nuts. So I
Hopefully they just both keep up in the ante. Hopefully both programs and both companies just kind of keep trying to one up each other because it just means better content for us fans.
yeah.
So that'll be good.
And I know you haven't really seen much of their pay per views yet. Maybe you did watch All Out. I'm not sure. But I like with their Double or Nothing, and then they did the All Out thing. I thought Double or Nothing was better than All Out. I really did.
Sure.
I thought All Out was it kind of went kind of steeply downhill to be honest. But that's just my opinion. And then they brought me back with the TV once they started running weekly. I was like, okay, they're back. Like this has a
Yeah.
Double or Nothing kind of feel to it. I'm digging it, And then but that All Out pay per view, I don't know if you've seen it or seen highlights or whatever, but like to me it was like a step backwards. So I'm hoping that at Full Gear they kind of okay, we kind of screwed up at All Out. Not to say that it was a bad event, but like to me it was like okay, like this is kind of predictable. This is kind of
Right.
there's no surprise. There's nothing really hyping me to watch. And then kind of to me it felt like a step back. So hopefully with Full Gear they kind of move forward and put together a good solid show that has more of that surprise element to it, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I saw mostly clips of those first two and read, different reports and rundowns and stuff like that. So, yeah, I would definitely, I can see what you're saying and everything else I'd heard. Some people thought it was kind of a little bit of like a regression. But again, like we talked about earlier, it's all a part of the growing process. I think they're
Yep.
trying to find kind of what their true identity is, and that only comes through kind of experimentation. So hopefully they
Hmm.
kind of righted some wrongs and will head into Full Gear, with a much more like clear perspective in terms of what they want to do and what they're hoping to accomplish with the card.
Yep. And like you had mentioned earlier, like NXT kind of uses their live events to like feel things out. AEW doesn't have that opportunity where they're like, okay, we're live on TV. If this flops live on TV, it flops. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
they don't run another show, so it's like,
right, right.
but yeah, I mean, overall, I really dig what AEW is doing over there, and I kind of am kind of stepping away from WWE as they go further down the rabbit hole and ruin the Fiend. But
Yeah, yeah, I know. I'll always be a loyal WWE guy, kind of to a fault. I'll always kind of like keep an eye on them. But yeah, it's the last few years. It's been harder and harder just to kind of watch them do what they do sometimes. And I'd read a report that after the finish of the Bray Wyatt Seth Rollins match, that Vince was like laughing backstage because of the
Yep.
audience reaction. And I had heard eventually then that wasn't true, but if it is, like, that just shows how grossly out of touch he is with the product. And same with a lot of other people back there. Outside of Paul Heyman and Triple H, I don't know if other people that are in the kind of the inner circle, to use a horribly cheesy pun from AEW, but who else in there really knows a lot. I mean, I know they already fired Bischoff
Yeah, that
because
was
he was
short.
out of touch. They put Bruce Pritchard in charge, which is a great option. Um, but again,
Yep.
if Vince is always having final say in everything, he's going to take whatever they do and undo it.
Yep.
So it's almost like a game to him, which is kind of depressing.
Yep.
It's like I always think back, and I run this through my head all the time. But I think way back to the CM Punk pipe bomb promo where he said, I mean, I know it was a promo, but he said, like, WWE will be better off when Vince McMahon's dead. And I would never go that far because it's not like I'm looking to see the man go. But
Mm-hmm.
I think WWE will be better off when he steps down.
Yep.
I think, I mean, I love the man, and he's a visionary. And, it's the reason I got into wrestling, because of what he's done. So I mean, I don't wish ill upon the man at all, but I do think at some point he's got to think about the future of the company, and he's got to let somebody else, hopefully Triple H, take control of it.
I'm hoping for that. Like you said, he just seems so out of touch with what's going on. Cause like even I don't know if you listened to it or not, but Moxley was on Jericho's podcast shortly after he left WWE. I don't know if you listened to that or not, but Moxley was saying like he just kind of like they would have a plan for Moxley, and Moxley would go to Vince and be like, "Hey, what are we getting over here? What's the point of this? Like, what is it doing for me? What is it doing for the person that I'm wrestling?" And Vince would just be like, "Oh, it's good. People are gonna love it," and just kind of leave it go at that. And then
Yeah.
Moxley would just be like, "Okay, whatever," and then he said he would go out there and he would do it, and they wouldn't get anything over, and he would be like, "I told you," you know, like so.
Yeah.
It is what it is. It's like a dictatorship over there at WWE. It seems.
It really is. Yeah, it really is, and it's just it's sad that it's gotten to that point. So
Hmm.
hopefully, I don't know. I mean, at some point he's got to think about a succession plan, because I think he's just kind of stubbornly holding on to his past successes. And granted,
Yep.
he created Hulk Hogan, he created the Undertaker, he helped create what Stone Cold and The Rock was. And I mean,
Yep.
he can always hang his hat on that, but this ain't the 1990s anymore. This isn't the 1980s. Like, it's
Yep.
it's 2019. Like, you're a 70-plus-year-old man that has worked himself hard and a lot, and has made a lot of money off of it. Dude, kudos to you. Like,
Hmm.
I know he'll never do it, but I hope that he steps down, he gets a giant thank you bit. Like, he'll never want it because he's not that type of guy. But God, I hope they roll out every red carpet imaginable for that guy when he decides to finally walk away.
And the thing
But
is like when they struggle, he leans back on the Rock and the Hogan and the Austin, and
yeah,
he'll bring them in, just for fun. Like if the ratings are down,
right,
he's like, "Oh, next week we're bringing in Austin. I don't know why, but we're
yeah.
bringing him in." Like.
Right, right, and it's just like it's like they're just there. It's like you can't, gosh, like you can't just rely on names anymore. You can't. I mean, fans are getting smarter. Like, yeah, I mean, everyone still pops when Hogan comes on and stuff, but even though we're popping, we're also going like, all right, dude, like. We've watched you say brother, and let me tell you something about 38 million times. Like, come on, man. Like,
Yep.
it's just, I don't know. He's too reliant upon what he used to do, and not thinking enough about what he can do.
Yep, because I mean, look at the talent pool they have, and he just,
Ah,
I mean, it's ridiculous. And even if they did it like, okay, one week they book a bunch of wrestlers for Raw, and then the next week they can book a bunch of different wrestlers for Raw, and make you, uh, wait for the development of storylines and stuff like that.
yeah,
So, but they don't do it that way, and it's whatever. But that's what I would do if I had that kind of talent pool to pull from, for sure.
yeah. I mean, they really could. Like, they could literally run every week on Raw have like different, like a different cropping of talent on there, and
Yep.
that's saying something. And it's crazy to think about the guys they've wasted. I mean, they've wasted Dolph Ziggler, they've wasted Finn Balor, they've wasted Bray Wyatt. The list of people that they've kind of pissed away.
Yep.
Just goes on and on and on, and it's depressing. Cesaro's another guy that comes to mind for me in terms of guys they've wasted. Kevin Owens, I feel like they've wasted. Sami Zayn, they sure of hell is wasted.
Yeah, I don't even know if he's even on. Is he even on anymore? Like,
he is Shinsuke Nakamura's business associate.
oh boy.
So he basically just rambles on the mic whenever Shinsuke Nakamura's out there.
So he's his heater, is what he is.
Yeah, he's a glorified hype man, and that's
Yep.
so depressing. So
Wow. That's something else.
depressing. Yeah.
But oh well, that's WWE for you. But like we said, we got the AEW to lean on. So.
That's right.
Anyway, any closing thoughts for you here? We've talked about a lot of stuff and covered some breaking news and all that kind of cool stuff.
I know. I'm gonna have to go in the reports now and see what I can hear about all this stuff.
Yeah.
Coming back, it's crazy. I appreciate having me on again. It's cool and an honor to be one of your. I don't know. Was I your first guest or was I like?
Yeah.
I can't remember if I was your first guest and now your first recurring guest. So
yeah,
it's freaking great. Hopefully, I have some more stories in the near future. I'm sending out a couple. I'm getting back in the TTM game a little bit, so I got 3 out ready to go out in the mail for tomorrow.
Very cool.
To some NXT people. I'm going to send one out to Bianca Belair. I
Nice.
wrote her a little letter telling her the story about how I met her. Keith Lee and I forgot who my other ones to now. I got to check. Oh, and to Pete Dunne.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sending out to them. So hopefully I'll have some returns in the near future. And we definitely want to get you on soon. So you can talk some more wrestling with us. So, hopefully people continue to check out your great work and continue to check us out because you're gonna be hearing from all of us for a while, hopefully.
Absolutely. This is my first podcast in about, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks. I've been pretty busy, but I try and stay on it. So we'll get back into the podcast game. I'm actually planning to do a top 25 TTM request video for all the different sports and so forth, like the top 25 signers in my opinion. So I think people will really dig that.
Nice.
Hopefully, maybe I'll drop some addresses in the comments when I post that. Help people out a little bit.
Thank you.
But I'm excited. I'm getting back into the TTMs. I got a couple I got to send out this week as well. I'm going to send to some NXT guys myself and some NFL players. I'm going to try and get Peyton Manning. I haven't tried him yet, and I'm going to try and do that and see what happens because I actually got Eli and Archie the other day, so now I have to get now I got to get Peyton to complete the trifecta.
Yeah.
So
Peyton was one of my first TTM returns when I got back into it a few years ago. I was able to nab him, so that was really cool. So yeah, hopefully he's usually from here pretty good about it.
Yep.
Still, so hopefully you're able to get him and complete that little trifecta.
Yep, for sure. But it was nice talking to you, man. I very much, like you said, appreciate you coming on. We could talk wrestling for another 2-3 hours and probably not run out of things. But
we probably could, man. I always appreciate it. Your kindness and your support of our show has always been great. You got great stuff and great content on your page too. So we love working with you.
Yep. Well, I appreciate y'all, and hopefully we can all get together and talk some more wrestling soon. And you take care, and we will keep plugging away at the Cheap Pops Wrestling Podcast and this one and the Autograph Cave and all that good stuff that we got going on. And it's a exciting time, just like it is in the wrestling universe here. So we'll see where it goes, man. But you take care of yourself, and I appreciate it.
Thanks, bro. You take care, too. We'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.